Hello, hello.
All right, you about ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Are you ready? Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Do another day.
Welcome. Here's our
Another
little
drink.
coffee ritual. Good morning.
Yep.
Another beautiful spring day here in Portland.
Looking up already.
Yep. Looking good. So, welcome to another episode of Everything
And nothing.
and Nothing. Everything and Nothing.
With your hosts, SumOne and
Anezka. Hi. Geez, time is so weird. I can't even believe it's been 2 weeks already.
yeah, well,
Crazy.
It's all instantaneous on the internet. You just click and then you're on the next moment.
Yeah. Oh gosh, what a 2 weeks it's been too.
It's a flurry.
My gosh.
Family, work, all
Yeah.
sorts of good things. Get my
Yeah.
golf game dialed in.
Yeah,
It's been
cool.
fun.
Well, mine's been less fun, but we're gonna wait to get into that because I think you're up first today. Is there anything you want to say before we start our questions? I mean, I didn't
No.
even ask. We went for coffee, and I was so like, "What's your question?" I was thinking it, and I didn't.
It's
So I'm really, really
super easy.
curious. Is it?
super easy.
Okay, do tell.
It's simple, easy, small,
Oh
digestible
God,
question.
that means get ready. Here
Yeah,
it
well,
goes.
I figured it kind of made sense to look at and talk a little bit about what is, why is, how is, who is God.
Oh my God.
It's a big word.
Jeez, Dave.
Being as I was,
It's morning.
atheist at one point, like I was very turned off by that word. I
Yeah.
kind of had an aversion to that
Yeah.
word. But over the last decade, looking at it more and more and kind of hearing discussions in different circles more and doing my own inner searching, I've come to not just accept that word, but really use it in a meaningful way. And I think it's a word that gets, I think it's probably the word that gets mistranslated and confuddled and confused the most.
Stigmatized.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many conflicts worldwide,
Oh, God,
violence and arguments and debates
Wars.
and hostilities that arise from this idea of knowing or not knowing or knowing the wrong version of God.
Oh, that's a good one. No,
so
the wrong version.
I thought it might be an interesting conversation, and I
Yeah.
know for sure you, growing up, had a history with that
God,
word. And I think
I just said God, yes.
I think you had a history of it kind of in the most normal way, like the most.
Well, Mormonism was not considered normal where I was raised in Southern Oregon. It was.
But the idea of God
Cultish.
being like a man in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
is
Heavenly
like
Father,
the Western ideal of
white
what
man.
God is.
Yes.
The personification.
Yes, and there
Yeah.
was the Holy Trinity because there was God,
You tell me, I wasn't there. What do you think?
The Holy Ghost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is really heavy for this morning's question.
That's why we got coffee.
I know. I think I need a little something stronger. No, I'm kidding. So it's interesting. Growing up, my mom was converted to Mormonism. So she was actually baptized into the Mormon church when she was pregnant with me, which had its own separate issues because there was a little bit of this like, oh, you're the chosen one because you're going to be baptized twice. So I don't know if this is true for all converts, but it was for my mom. She was very dogmatic because she was a convert. I mean, we lived it to the letter of the law. We were at church like 4 and 5, 6 times a week. I was really entrenched in it. And as a kid, I was very programmed. I was speaking the propaganda, So in the beginning, I had deep, deep, deep love for God and for Jesus Christ and for, everything Mormon. But there were things that felt uncomfortable along the way, like little flags that were like, that doesn't quite seem right,
Yeah.
And then when I left home at 18 after I graduated, and that's kind of was the beginning of the end for Mormonism for me. It all started to unravel because as I started to go out into the world and figure out who I was and what I was and coming into my own spirituality, it kind of began to the propaganda. And I'm not saying that word in a negative way, because, there are some there are beautiful parts of all religion, I believe, and Mormonism has its beautiful parts as well. For me, there were a lot of things that just didn't fit right in my soul. And so the God piece is, I believed in it, and I still do believe in God. But there's a shift that happened for me, that I moved from the religious aspects of God. And I moved.
I like religious. That's a good word.
Religious. I moved to more of the spiritual aspect of it. So for me, God now is rooted more in nature and more in a free form and more in the power of the universe, rather than connected to one theology.
I never really was a religist myself. I didn't bring that into our home. But I mean, even on my own grounds, my own perspective of seeking, it never really resonated with me. And because I think that version of God that you grew up with is kind of the main vanilla God that most of us hear about and know about through culture, through media, through movies, through churches, through just our peer circles. And it's structured in a way that is dogmatic. It's structured in a way that I feel disempowers the individual and requires the individual to put its power into the church instead. You have to you relinquish your power and put it into the hands of, the prophet or the Christ or, the Pope or whoever it might be. And obviously also you have these high moral standards with so much controversy and scandal revolving around it. And so I think a lot of the public, especially during my generation, bittered and soured on the church, and you saw the numbers of self-identifying churchgoers drop off dramatically in the last few decades, and for good reason. But I think there's something really special and sacred and important about those circles that my generation and a lot of people in this epoch have abandoned. The church has been a important column in society for all of recorded history, and for good reason. And at its core, you strip away all of the BS and all of the power tripping, and at its core, it's a quest for understanding morality and existence. And I see a lot of parallels. So I was an atheist as I went into science, and I was like, I'm all about science. I believe what I see. I believe what I can test. I
remember that. Yeah.
And the more I look at them both, the more I see religion and spirituality as a form of science. It's just a quest to understand these unknown realms, this unknown cosmic intelligence or consciousness, the quest to understand where it all originated from, where we all came from, and what we're all doing here.
And how do we fit in?
Yeah.
And how do we fit into that?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So where's your view now?
Well, I just had a million things fire through my brain as you were talking. And, so I went through on my own quest, as a young woman after I, the church was falling apart for me. Like I was seeing the human aspect of it. Yeah. And I'm not going to go into those stories today because we don't have time, but there were some very personal things that were like, this doesn't feel right. And so as I left that, I began to search for my own spiritual connection. I tried Unity Church. I went into fellowships. I started to study Buddhism. I went into Ekankar.
I remember that one.
Yeah, and I would say Ekankar was the one that I probably did bring into our family most, because it felt like it was your connection with that divinity rather than going through someone. But still, there was a person who was kind of like that hierarchy over the whole religious structure. So for me, and again, these are just our opinions, but for me, what I began to unravel is that religion itself, like the substance, the information itself, I think is pure. I think where it in my opinion, it goes south is when you get any group of people together as humans, we just can't help ourselves. So religion is this, it's bringing things together. And as soon as that a group of people start coming together and believing the same thing, it seems like it breeds this judgment.
And it creates outsiders.
It breeds this like, we're a team, we're a clan, we're a tribe, and you're not part of it. Yeah. And because you're not part of it, you're not either as good as us, you're not as holy as us, you don't know the right information, I feel sorry for you, we've got to teach you, we've got to change you, and trying to conform everyone into this one philosophy. And to me, that never made sense, because everything in science, everything we read is like everything is so uniquely different. We learn different, we feel different, we come from different experiences, on and on and on and on and on. So why would there be only one path to the love of God? To me, that just doesn't make sense. And so for me, I just recognized early on that religion just doesn't work for me, because every time I got into that group consciousness, it always started to turn if I asked the wrong question, or I did something that they thought wasn't in alignment with their philosophy. And then it's like, ooh, nope, get that out of here. That's dangerous. They're starting to, tempt fate, Satan or whatever.
Yeah, whenever there's a belief structure that's threatened by questions, I feel it's not built on a very sturdy foundation.
Yeah. So I started just being like what I thought of as more like a child of the universe. Like, I'm very spiritual, and I very much believe in God, and I very much believe in following the golden rule and being a good person. And I'm very, very in tune with all of that. But I'm not maybe going to use your language or your language or your language or your rules, because I think it's a personal thing. It kind of goes back to last week's podcast. We were talking about power.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that this is something that I felt has been missing from the humanity, from our human experience, is that we've been so taught to give our power away and our authority away. Doctors, like anybody,
public schooling.
Public schooling.
Like, listen to your teacher, know the facts, don't ask questions, don't question.
Religion,
yeah.
And I feel like it's a direct pipeline. Like, that's where I also started to disagree with religions, is like, God, I came into this world alone with God and this whole spiritual cosmic force. I am going to die alone with God and this spiritual force. Not anybody else, not the bishop of the church, not the prophets, not the Pope. They're not going to be there. It's between me and God. So to me, it's like, okay, so I'm supposed to listen to you and go everything through you and give my power to you and do what you say and don't say and all that. But then when I die, then it's between me and God. Again, common sense. It just doesn't make sense to me. And so for me, it's about taking that power. And I think as humans, we're afraid of that word too. We're afraid of power. Oh, power means it's selfish and you're going to do bad things with it. But no, it can be a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I mean, you create beauty through empowering yourself and making decisions.
Yeah.
Based on what you feel, what you desire.
Yeah.
What you and your connection to whatever divinity might be has inspired you to create. And I find that an interesting parallel too, because God, in the traditional sense, is the creator.
Yeah.
He's looked at very much as this patriarchal figure that creates everything, but being the creator, you then look at humanity and what humans represent on this green earth, and we are the creators. We manifest reality. We create structure and order. We create
our
cities.
Health,
we literally move mountains. We imagine something within our mind. And where does imagination come from? I don't know. That's a whole other discussion. But we visualize what we want to see or change or create, and then we manifest that through invention, through hard work, through perseverance, in relationships or in physical reality. We are the creators.
And I think, though, this is my belief, I would tap onto that, is that we are creating in connection, a direct connection to whatever that source
Cosmic
is.
energy is.
God, spirit,
I think so.
energy. I mean, what kind of word do you want to put on it?
Well, and that's what that
That's
God,
the divinity.
that's what that word is trying to encapsulate. I've
Exactly.
found God is trying to explain that entire fabric of unknown cosmic grid of energy, and it's the older I get, the more I love it. The older I get, the more I accept it. And the more it just makes sense in an unknowable kind of way. It's crazy if that is. Like, it's unknowable, but I get it completely.
It's like everything and nothing.
pretty much, yeah.
Well, and I just want to add something else onto that just popped up too, is that, because my mom and I had a lot of discussions, because I did leave the church, and she was heartbroken by that, and she wanted me to go back into it, and we had a lot of conversations, and she felt like, that I wasn't saved and living a good life. And
She thought you were going to hell.
Yeah. And I have found that to be true with a lot of people who are in religions. It's like, if you're not with them, then you're against them, kind of an energy, even though they talk about Jesus teaches unconditional love, but there's always that feeling, and that's the one thing I want to say, is that my mom and I came to a beautiful healing, because I said, well, look at the quality and the content of my life. Who am I as a human being? And it really broke through. I don't have to be Mormon, like, I'm living a good life. And you can trust that this is between me and God. And if I need to come back to this religion, then I'll be led there, But that's the thing that I just kind of want to put also, is that I believe that all the religions are important and necessary, all of them.
Yeah. Because
we're all so different. We hear things, we see things, we know things in different ways. That's why there's so many different kinds of decorations and books and trainings, and, because we all need to find something that resonates with us. And so I think it's really important, whatever religion you're in or not in, it's perfect. Here's where I just want to throw out an idea, though, is that, for all of you that are in these religions and these other paths and these other forms, what would it be like to grant that same permission and space to other humans that aren't in that category of what you think they should be to be saved? It's just a question. It's just a perspective. How could that be a different form of God?
While I was a staunch atheist, like 10, 12 years ago, whatever it might have been now, I remember I was at Portland State University taking classes, and I took a, bullshit easy credit class called spirituality. And I was like, that's be easy A, And they wanted me to do a class project, and I thought about it a little bit, and I decided what I was going to do was travel to different churches and just kind of like, go in and see what it was all about. I had my stigmas, I had my stereotypes, I had my prejudices, and I wanted to know what I was so critical of. I wanted to know on a deeper level. So I went into 3 different churches and had a very wide variety of experiences, from very negative to magic. And like I said, a lot of these churches do a lot of good and bring a lot of hope and a lot of joy and a lot of cohesion to community, and create a lot of neighborly and brotherly love, and that is something that we could all use more of. We really could. So I think we have to find a way to really, think about and work on understanding what is God to us, and what is, how do we as a human fit into this bigger picture in a way that we can, make positive change and connect and really thrive and grow. And all of these things come together, and you don't learn these things at school. You don't practice meditation at school. You don't practice mindfulness, or you don't talk about morality in classes unless you get some oddball, really good teacher by chance. But there's no classes dedicated to this stuff.
Or teaching tolerance.
Yeah. It doesn't happen.
Right.
So I wanted to bring this word up just to share a little bit of my own evolution with it, and to just make clear that it's something that I feel we need to be a little more centric with,
Right.
a little more focused on.
Well, what I'm taking away from, and I have a couple of little questions, is like,
Shoot, yeah.
you know, like really what I feel like it's coming to is like, what is God to you? And that's really the question maybe for you to take away from, and how does God express in and through you? And rather than labeling that good or bad or right or wrong or whatever, you know, maybe just allowing that to be and unfold for you. Because for me, I go out and I pray in nature a lot. I contemplate. I'm in a deeply close, you know, relationship. But I'm sure it doesn't look like what anybody else does. You know,
And I bet you'd be surprised. I bet that your version of God probably aligns with
Maybe.
millions of other people.
Maybe.
There's so many of us on this
yes,
globe.
and that could be. Do I want to start a group? No, I don't.
Some sort of cult.
No. But I had a question.
Yeah.
As we're talking, like,
Yeah.
so when did your, you know, atheism, when did that shift for you? Was there any particular experience or point or time where you were like,
There was no one moment. It's, you know, like all things, it's a gradual change of baby step,
Experiences.
baby step.
Yeah.
That class, the spirituality class, was a major point.
Yeah.
I remember that. I mean, you know, if we're gonna get into the weeds a little bit,
yeah,
you know, I did a bunch of drugs one time, and that definitely helped.
Yep.
Hallucinogens.
kind of opened up a different pathway
will
for you?
change the way you're able to see the world.
Yeah.
Also, traveling.
Yes.
Being able to travel and like see all these different like societies and the way they function. Also, just on one of my main traveling journey was I took a bicycle from Portland, and my goal was to go to South America, and I didn't make it all the way. I made it to the bottom of Mexico, but along that journey, I just felt like some sort of divine guidance was with me, because everywhere I went, every single day, was just pure bliss, pure magic, just pure unexpected perfection. And so,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of little things have come together to just make a lot more sense. And, you know, from where I am right now, I am very much a scientist. I'm very much
Yeah,
a
you are.
skeptic. But you know, the word God, it's uppercase for some reason. And it's been with us since the beginning of recorded history. It's some fundamental human knowledge that we've
Yes.
always known, that there's something great, there's something unexplainable, and that word is our best attempt to capture it.
And it's bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So I don't know if we have time. You let me know. But I was also thinking, I was curious for you to share one of your church experience stories.
Yeah, no, not
Do we have
today.
not today?
Not today.
It's really fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we can do that one day. That'd be
Okay.
fun.
It was
That'd be fun.
really interesting. Okay. Yeah, I feel my mind's a little blown apart right now,
Like
thinking
I said,
about this again.
An easy one. Warm-up question.
Yeah. Yeah. I deeply and profoundly am grateful for the aspect of God in this lifetime and my life, and it has changed me in so many ways, which I'll probably actually talk about some of the ways it's changed me next. Do we need to take a break? And
Probably should. Make sure the camera doesn't
it out
doesn't
and-
quit on us.
so stay tuned.
Quick intermission.
Part 2's coming.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Are we back?
You're back.
I'm back. I gotta have some water.
Now I'm back.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's so funny because as soon as you said your topic, I'm like, we're so
Yeah,
synced.
Again?
Yeah, because my topic is death.
Death comes for us all.
It's another one of those really big words, but you know, it's up for me. It's something that I just really went through again these last 2 weeks of working with the whole topic of death, maybe the last month, and I really again, like God, there's a million different avenues that this could take. But I'm going to kind of try to nutshell this before we get to the question.
Sure, yeah.
Because for me, this is going to be tied into a very personal experience that I've been undergoing. And 10 years ago, actually about this time, April, was when I was diagnosed, and you've heard me mention this a little bit, but I'm going to tell more of the foundational story. I was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, squamous cell something. Sorry, I don't remember it. But it happened very quickly, and in 3 weeks it went from two benign tumors, to full-on cancer, to we're going to do surgery and cut it out, to we're going to do radiation and chemo. And because it was rare, I think it was like the 74th case in the United States at that time. And typically what they would do is cut it out through surgery, because they were actually, I know this is going to be graphic, but in the rectum, right? I had 2 gum-sized tumors growing into the stomach. So went through this whole thing, ended up, I didn't know this at the time, but I was a guinea pig. And at that time, they hadn't been doing chemo and radiation for this kind of cancer. And I just found out that they doubled the amounts of radiation and the cancer. They did the full amount of chemo. And I'm like, okay, no wonder it's taken me 10 years to heal from that, because I wanted it to be successful. And because I was so strong and they said I had a good support system, I would have a 95% success rate as opposed to 75. So we went for it. And in that, I had the therapy literally almost killed me. And I was hospitalized through half of that treatment, on and off. I was in and out of the hospital for that 2 weeks, that 2 months. But I got through that experience, and this has kind of been something I've lived. I've had very intimate experiences with death, very intimate. And after I went through the chemo radiation and I almost died and came back, and on the other side of this cancer, there were these moments of just like looking at life and looking at death, looking at life, looking at death, because it really did blow me apart. It just blew everything about me apart. And there were times where I was like, man, I wish I just died. I went through a lot of years, a few years of that, and then picking life back. And so I've learned a lot about what does death feel like? What does life feel like? What does death feel like? What does life feel like? So why am I telling you this story? Because just 2 months ago, I started not feeling well again, and I had symptoms presenting that were similar to what I had gone through before. And they fast-tracked me, and it's weird. It's exactly the same time. Talk about synchronicity. April is when I went through it 10 years ago, and now I'm going through it again in April. So we went through all the tests again. We went through, the CAT scans and the MRI and the blood tests and the pelvic and colonoscopy, and this time they did a ECG, which is down the throat. And good news is, I'm cancer-free. They didn't find anything. Yay. But this is what I want to talk about with death. So it's a really interesting thing. And I think that again, like you're talking about the word God, I feel like as a species, we kind of have this unhealthy relationship with death. Yeah. We think of it as the worst case scenario and rip your clothes off, and we're terrified of it, and do anything you can to make yourself look as young as possible, and all of these different things. And I don't know, I feel like maybe one day I might write a book about this, but what I recognized through this process, right? So here I am going through these tests again, and my first thing is, the first time I went through the test, I was terrified of dying. This time around, no, I'm not afraid of dying at all. Zero. What I was afraid of is letting go of people and attachments and the impossible decisions I would have to make if it did come back.
Yeah, or if you chose life, then you have to suffer more.
Right. So that's what happened. So when I got the news I was going to live, there was that first moment of like, yay, because as I was waiting for that shoe to drop, there was a part of me, and I'm going to be really honest, that was like, what a relief. what a relief to just lay it all down. I don't have to work on my health stuff anymore. I don't have to deal with the politics. There's like, I don't have to deal with all of these human things that we carry around with us, And so a part of me was just like, oh my God, what a relief to just lay all that shit down. But my motto was, well, I'm just going to live the shit out of life until it's done. But then, post this experience, then, yay, I'm going to live. The next day, depression. Huge depression, because what I realized then is like, I got to pick all this shit back up. I got to live. And to live, that means, okay, I'm going to pick up these things I'm healing and working on. And so there's a real, so first of all, I just want to like get your take on this whole concept of death. And then I want to talk a little bit about what I call, are you death living or are you life living? And then I want to talk about some of those differences, because I think a lot of us are death living. We're anyway.
Death is...
Turn it over to you for a minute.
Death is part of life. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
We all get there. And for some reason, a lot of us are fearful of it. Maybe it's letting go of our possessions, our relationships.
Yep.
Maybe it's fear of some afterworldly hell waiting for us.
The unknown.
The unknown is big. I remember a younger me, and I think a lot of people back when I was a kid, we'd talk about it, be like, oh yeah, it'd be so cool, if we could live forever. Yeah, it'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But, after a little more time on this planet, I was like, yeah, fuck that. I don't think I want to be here that long, And really, for me, the main driving force in that decision change was the fact that I'm just too curious. Mm-hmm. Like, imagine if you were stuck here forever. What are you missing? Maybe nothing. Maybe eternal blackness. Maybe the void. Maybe just, the end. Mm-hmm. But maybe there's something there. And even if it's a small maybe, I'm still too curious to not want to find out. So
I love that about you.
So if I had the choice to take a pill and live forever, I would have to refuse. Maybe give me a good 300 years. I think I'd probably burn out after that.
Yeah.
Another cool thing about death is pretty cool, is that it puts a punctuation mark inevitably coming down the pipeline.
Yes.
One thing about having an infinite supply of something is it's no longer valuable.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
But if you make it finite, all of a sudden it's valuable.
Yeah.
So in its own funny way, death is what makes life valuable to begin with.
Yeah.
We have a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
How are you going to use it in a valuable way?
Yeah. Well, and that's the conclusion I came to through these almost so many near-death experiences, is that, so as I've told you, so I'm going to answer that question in a minute. So as I've told you, I'm not really comfortable with the word psychic, but I am, and I can see things, and I know things, and I hear things that are beyond this world.
I've seen it.
Yeah. And so when I was in the hospital and crossing over the threshold, it was interesting because death was there in the hospital room. And we all see death differently, I think. So for me, it was coming through as this skeleton that was dressed like a Mexican, had a sombrero on and a poncho, and it was like sitting there smoking a cigarette, just looking at me, going like, what's it gonna be, girl? What's it gonna be? You ready to go? You not ready to go? Mm-hmm. And what I realized is that this last experience took all the fear, and actually death is a friend. Is a really deep, as much of a deep loving friend as maybe you think of as Jesus Christ or as God or whatever, because death brings completion. Death allows us to have an end to a story. And like you were saying, like if you just keep going on and 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 on, but death allows us to have an ending so that we can rebirth. I mean, at least in my philosophy. Yeah. Or maybe have an ending and then just go into oblivion. I mean, that'd be okay too for me. I mean, I'm okay with that, whatever your belief is. But that's what I learned about death, is that it's a friend. And since that experience, it's like, I look forward to my death, not like, woohoo, bring it on. Yeah. I'm not bullshitting about this, but there's a peace, and it's not because I saw some big light and it's all wonderful. I didn't have that experience, but because there's a knowing that there is something more and that it's not something to be afraid of. It's like going on a vacation, like you don't know what what kind of adventure you're going to have there.
Yeah, exactly.
But you are going to have an adventure. You are going to learn something.
Well, you have the phoenix, you have the snake eating its own tail,
Right.
You have all these symbols throughout history which demonstrate and articulate that an end is just a beginning.
Yeah.
And they're really enmeshed, one and the same thing.
Yeah.
Destruction is creation. The end is the begin.
Yeah.
And it's built in. It's like, also, if you're going to be afraid of it or fight it, why? It's inevitable. Like, it's like, fighting gravity. It's like, you're not going to win that one. So I think it's important that we look at it, examine it, and at least, at the bare minimum, even if we don't accept it completely, at least just make peace with it. Make peace that this is the direction we're moving in.
Yeah.
And, that's it. At least maybe you'll find some solace there.
Yeah. And I think a good way to start doing that, how I did is I would just sit and allow the feelings of what that is. What is the death? What is it that I'm feeling? What is it that I'm, like for me, it's like I have to allow myself space to let things come up rather than overdoing, overstimulating, and, and so, sometimes we don't know how to unravel these big conundrums, but that leads me back to, I also want to answer those questions. So what do you think is like, I have some ideas of what death living is, because I want to explain that.
Death living.
So, yeah.
You want me to
you
guess
just,
the definition?
Yeah, you want to guess, or you want me to start?
Death living. Death living might be living deathfully. No, I don't.
Well, I feel like it's like, for me, so let me just do this. So it's like giving up and giving in. You're alive,
So
but you're
living disempowered as opposed to living empowered.
Yeah. Or homogenized or mediocre, or comfort over growth and expansion, or shut down, numbing out, avoiding, and denying.
So if you're living afraid of death and just trying to keep it at bay all the time, trying to stay extra safe and not take any risks and make sure that you don't, get hit by a car because you never cross the street, and you're not going to get sick because you never go outside. It's like, that's not living at all. That's living in fear. And fear controls a lot of people.
Yeah.
So then life living would be like living just to live, living to thrive, living to feel, living to be excited, living to find joy,
adventure,
living to meet people.
Yeah,
you go, you find the river, and there's a log across it, and you walk across the log. It's like, I might get wet, I'm alive.
Yeah.
So risk taking versus not.
Because I think that for a long time, and I don't know, maybe you can answer this question for yourself too, is like, where have you been like death living? Because after this last experience, again, it really made me like, okay, are we going to really pick up life? And where are we going to choose, over just laying on the couch and watching TV and, I'm too tired, or, I don't feel like cooking, or, I feel like that's kind of forms of like giving up and giving in, like, and it goes back to what we were talking about, power. Like, where are you laying your power down?
Yeah.
What is it? What's your it thing that you're avoiding and hiding and numbing from? What if you went into that? Like, how would that change your life? How would you live your life differently?
Yeah. It's obviously, there's pieces of my life where I'm avoiding a little bit. I don't know if it's because of death necessarily, but I've definitely disempowered myself a little bit in seeking a relationship and in pushing my own business due to whatever reasons. I would say those are both kind of fear-based decisions based on not wanting to build something and invest a lot of time in it just to watch it explode or crumble and, fizzle out. But that's not related to death so much, but it's also the end of something else, the end of a relationship, the end of an organization you build. Those are also forms of death via an ending. So you could relate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that just for me, it's like, and I've had a lot of opportunity to deal with this. So I know that I'm coming at it from like a very different place than maybe a lot of people who've never had to really look at it or think about it or deal with it. But it has made me change my perspective when I wake up in the morning, and look at things and like, okay, so when I say death living, it's kind of like being a zombie. Like where am I not utilizing my fullest potential? Like, where could I be more alive today?
Yeah. Yeah.
What am I missing? And adventures, I always like to use that word, but adventures don't have to be just going on a big trip. Adventure can be like wearing some kind of new clothing that's a different style.
True. Having a conversation with one person.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a million different forms, taking a class, like where, but I mean, I know this is kind of like around the whole like afraid of death thing. This is more, like it's all like this big tapestry. But what we're talking about now is like, okay, so I'm not going to die maybe in this moment or tomorrow, whatever. Then what new perspective can I have on myself, on God, on claiming my power, on being adaptive? How can I engage more?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question, regardless of if you're focused on death or not. Just where and how do I engage purposefully? And it brings me back to the point that life is valuable. Life is finite. Yeah. You only have so many days left. If you only had today left, if you only had tomorrow left, what would you want to accomplish? How would you want to spend that? Yeah. What are you missing still? Because you might only have tomorrow left.
You might.
You might only have this next year left. You might have 50 years. You might have more. But we just don't know.
Yeah.
And every day is a very insignificant game of Russian roulette where the time might be up.
Yeah.
So what's important? Go out and get it.
Yeah. What are you avoiding? Who have you not called? What's unfinished?
Yeah. What regrets would you have if this was the end?
Because you do think about that. When I was dying, it's like I wasn't thinking about like, oh, I wish I had, made more money and it was none of that. I was thinking about the people that loved me and I loved, and maybe a connection with someone that I missed.
If I had like young kids, I think it'd be hard, obviously, because it's like people are depending on me.
Yeah.
I think even not having kids, that's probably the hardest part about facing death would be like, who am
absolutely.
I leaving hanging? Who needs me here? And who's going to suffer because I'm not here anymore? Like, and then it's like, I'm making that person suffer by dying. And
which, is that true?
I mean, yes and no.
Yeah.
It's a very empathetic position to take.
Yeah.
And, there is a cause of you disappearing and all this extra stuff that they have to learn and baggage they have to pick up. But it's also part of the natural process.
Yes.
And if I'm hit by a plane, I'm not going to like sit there in two pieces and keep going with missing my legs and my, abdomen just because it's like, oh, well, they need me.
Or is that even possible?
Probably going to check out.
Nope.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I don't have a head, but, I'll still do some babysitting, whatever.
Oh God. Yeah, not.
No. Yeah, I think that's the hardest part, the unplugging from society.
Yeah.
And because for me, that's the most important part of life is the connections with the people around. Maybe if money is the most important thing to you, that would be the hardest thing. It's like, oh, you got to bury me with all my possessions in my pharaoh's tomb because it's the most important thing,
Oh my God, what a concept.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I think whatever you value, whatever you've worked so hard for, you're going to lose it. Mm-hmm. And depending on how attached you are to whatever that is, will make death easier or a harder pill to swallow.
And also, I think how you're connected to God makes it easier or harder too.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. That's just something that came up for me. But
what would you think? What would make it easier or harder in that?
Well, I mean, I think connecting to God, right? Whatever that higher is really another, for me, aspect of knowing myself better. And the more I know myself, whoever, all the parts of me, then the more comfortable I am with
moving on,
letting go.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel like it all ties up. As I feel like everything that we're talking about, this whole connection with God, our creativity, our power, all these different things, it's really about who am I?
That's true too, because the more you kind of understand there's something bigger than you, the more you actually see and start to believe that, like, wow, there's more going on here. The more confident I become that death is just another step into another journey. It's not an end.
Right.
I mean, it might be, but the more you see it and start to believe that there probably is more, the less scary, a physical death seems to me.
Or anything. And the less scary living feels too. So I think it's both sides of the coin.
Point.
The more that I know myself and have those connections, the more living seems less scary and dying seems less scary. And I think that's where I am more now. And I'm going to continue to keep thriving. Yeah, that feels good.
It does feel good.
Yeah. Whew, my head is like a little big. Yeah. Which I just want to say before we close this session up today that I really appreciate doing these sessions with you, because I don't just come here and talk a bunch of shit and then go walk out the door and go do. It's really interesting because it sits with me. I actually practice what we talk about. I think about it. I'm incorporating it in my life, and I feel like it's helping me to transform. And so I'm really grateful.
Well, it's self-discovery. We're bringing topics to talk about, to think about, to share about, to hopefully learn about.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I wish we were talking to all you guys too, because the bigger the circle is, the more of us that can have a voice, the closer we're going to get to, what's actually going on here. So I invite you, maybe find your own small group or one person. Bring a topic. Your group of you and your mom. You and your whoever. And talk, because it's kind of amazing. Very cathartic. Like what comes out. Yeah. And how it shifts something inside of me every time we talk. Well, and connection between multiple people is so important also, because we all have all these blind spots and all these circular patterns we're running in. And we're so used to them, we can't see them ourselves. So I need people to push back on me. And to show different. To reflect what it is I'm saying, so I can actually clearly see what that is. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. It is. I feel complete. And I didn't even get to see your shawl. Oh. She wanted to show off some colors today. No, I didn't. It's my bad. Anyway, we're gonna leave it there. Yep. Thanks for joining us. It's been a great day. It's been great talking to you. SumOne. Yeah. Please leave a comment. It's been great talking to all you as well. Yeah. It's beautiful. And have a beautiful day. Be well. Be well. See y'all down the road. Cool. Boom. Yep. Bada bing.